everybody? It is I, once again, the Nomad, coming to you live from the wastelands of the internet. Come to bring you the news of the day, as I see it, the important things that are going on. All right, it's Friday, so if you want to come on the show, unfortunately today is not going to be able to happen. I'm having issues with Discord, so I'm relaying you into here would be very difficult at this point in time. But let's get started with the news, shall we? Ukraine imposes state of emergency in energy sector. Really? The Russians have been concentrating their attacks throughout the nation on the energy infrastructure, and now the Ukraine is forced to respond. Does this surprise anybody? From Xinhua News, Ukraine has imposed a state of emergency in its energy sector due to the impact of Russian attacks on its energy facilities. Denis Shmyhal, all right, first prime minister and energy minister, said on Friday, "Our task is coordinated and effective work to stabilize the situation in the energy system as soon as possible, in particular in the city of Kiev." All right. He said on Telegram, under emergency measures, residents will be allowed to access emergency heating shelters at night despite the curfew. The government has also instructed relevant agencies to streamline procedures for connecting backup power equipment to the electricity grid and to distribute such equipment across regions based on a critical need. State-run companies, including Ukrainian railway and gas operator Naftogaz, have been ordered to increase energy imports to at least 50% of their total consumption. Earlier this week, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the energy situation is difficult in Kiev, Odessa, and the central, I'm not going to butcher that thing, Dnipro region. All right. This is a sign that the Russian attacks are working. All right. It's unfortunate. A lot of people are like, "Well, no, man, this is attacking civilians." This is not attacking civilians, folks. This is a total war situation. You take out the energy grid. Yes, it puts pressure on the civilians. Okay, there's no doubt about that. Are the Russians succeeding? In a sense, but only in a sense. Okay. The thing is Russia is still losing men at an extraordinarily difficult rate. Are they ready to capitulate? Are they ready to make peace? To be honest, I peace would be great for everybody, but I just don't see it happening because of the competing situations. Russia thinks it's winning. Europe is more, as you'll see, is preoccupied with something else. All right, and it's the downfall of the Europeans, all right, and the European collective agreements are going to shatter the Ukrainians. What the Europeans are doing is going to shatter any help and any hope that the Ukrainians have. I want this to be clear. Any hope that the Ukrainians would have would be military forces from other nation states to come in and occupy some kind of ceasefire zone or DMZ zone between Russia and the Ukraine. That's the best. That's the best the Ukrainians at this point can reasonably hope for. Because the only way to defeat the Russians is with military forces, and like it or not, the Ukrainians do not have it. Weapon systems help, but they're not going to be decisive. And so, unless the rest of the world gets involved, the Ukrainians are going to have to live with the fact that there's going to be a peace deal where a good portion of their nation is carved up. They don't like that. They don't want that. At least not the ones supporting Volodymyr Zelensky. I have made no bones about Zelensky. The man is a corrupt official. That's all he is with a corrupt nation. It's another corrupt Middle Eastern, I shouldn't say Middle Eastern, but Middle Eastern European rather, nation state like Tajikistan or Kazakhstan or whatever stand you want to go there. They're no different. They're no different than the Russians. The Russians are corrupt. Yeah, sure. Utterly corrupt. Is it fixing anything? Is it doing anything? Is it causing any any redress here? The answer is no. Let's be perfectly frank. The answer is no. It's unfortunate that the situation is what it is. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. This is what you get. Just pointing it out. Just pointing it out. On to the next story. Dun, 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 dun. U.S. Donald Trump hints U.S. could pull out of NATO over Greenland as he doubles down on blistering tariff threat, and Europe sends boots on the ground. Donald Trump has warned the U.S. may pull out of NATO, all right, which would end any chance the Ukrainians have of anything, okay, if America's supposed allies don't agree to its acquisition of Greenland. Will you pull out of NATO if it doesn't help you acquire Greenland? A reporter asked the president outside the White House on Friday. We're going to see. NATO has been dealing with us on Greenland. All right, we need Greenland for national security very badly. If we don't have it, have a very big hole. If we don't have it, we have a very big hole in terms of national security, especially in terms of the Golden Dome. The Golden Dome is a proposed multi-layer missile defense system, which the president said is reliant on seizing control of Denmark's Arctic territory. Trump earlier threatened to impose tariffs on countries that don't go along with Greenland as he escalated his pressure campaign. Britain, Finland, France, Germany, and the Netherlands, Norway, and Sweden announced yesterday the deployment of small numbers of troops to Greenland in response to Trump's bellicose rhetoric. A bipartisan congressional group, I don't know why this stupid thing happens here, right? Arrived for talks in Copenhagen on Friday aimed at shoring up support for America's NATO ally. Okay, this is a joke. Okay? And I'll tell you why it's a joke. If the United States gets serious, all we have to do is blockade Greenland, and those wunderbar, military forces from all these other nations starve. It's that simple. All we have to do is blockade it. All we have to do is issue a blockade, and this ends. And the fact that these other nations are acting this way demonstrates that they're not allies of the United States, nor do they sit up there and seriously consider Russia as a threat to them. This has been the problem the whole time. The Ukrainians, all right, especially Volodymyr Zelensky, believe that the Europeans and his European allies all right, will counterbalance whatever the United States wants to do. But everybody knows there is no such thing as NATO without the United States. The United States is NATO. And if we pull out of NATO, by the way, something I've advocated for and still advocate for. And the reason is two reasons. The U.S. security interests, all right, are not well served with the United States being in NATO at this point, number one. And number two is our supposed allies aren't doing a damn thing to protect themselves. Oh, we're going to send some Eurofighters over there. Eurofighters? Really? A platform that doesn't exist? Oh, individual components do. The Eurofighter, there's a plane called the Eurofighter that flies around. But that's it. They have no coordinated effort to actually deal with their own defense, including the great Danish with their 50 main battle tanks. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians are now starting to feel the pressure because the United States is no longer sugar daddy. And they stabbed us in the back. Zelensky gave us the finger, all right, and continues to give us the finger, thinking that the Europeans should be the ones leading this effort, and that as if the Europeans are useful for any of their defense. And I'm all for just pulling completely out and letting the Ukraine fall to the Russians. I really am. Not because I like Russia, not because I think that they're good guys, not because I think Putin is a wonderful human being, but because it doesn't matter to the U.S. interest overall, especially in consideration that it props up people who are stabbing America in the back. It is counterproductive to U.S. interests in the world. People have to start to realize our support for Ukraine is counterproductive for the overall U.S. support in the world because they constantly, our supposed allies, are stabbing us in the back. They're not willing to stick their necks out. They're willing to sell American money and American troops and American equipment in areas that they themselves don't want to sit up there and commit to. This is why I've tried to explain to people. We've given tons of money to the Ukraine. Well, they're giving billions of euros. No, they haven't. They put loans on those billions of euros. All right? And so what's happening is the money that the United States, the dollars that American is actually giving to Ukraine, is then used to pay the loan, all right, from the EU. In other words, it's only the U.S. Screw you guys. We're going to pick up our ball and we're going to go home because this does not serve America's interests when you have Canadians, when you have the other freaking NATO countries more willing to work with dedicated enemies to the West than they are with the United States. That's reality. Iranian prince calls for surgical strikes against the Iranian Republican Guard. Exiled Crown Prince has urged Donald Trump to carry out surgical strikes against the country's Revolutionary Guards, the IRGC, putting pressure on the U.S. president to follow through with his promise to help protesters. Reza Pahlavi, all right, who lives in exile in the Washington area, has sought to present himself as leader of the Iranian opposition, and he said he believed Mr. Trump would stay true to his word and come to the protesters' rescue. The president was reportedly persuaded not to strike Iran on Wednesday night after urgent calls by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Oman, as well as Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister. Despite Mr. Trump being talked down for now, America's USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier and its strike group have been redirected and sent toward Iran and is due to arrive within a week. David Barnea, the director of Israel's Mossad spy agency, meanwhile arrived in the U.S. on Friday morning for talks on the situation in Iran, an Israeli source told Axios. I believe that President Trump is a man of his word, and ultimately he will stand with the Iranian people, as he has said. Mr. Pavia said when asked if Mr. Trump had given the Iranian protesters false hope. Once again, I will say this. We have to realign assets in the region to effectively strike against the Iranian Republican Guard or Revolutionary Guard Corps, right? We don't have the assets currently in the region to deal with that. Just a second, folks. Sorry about that, everybody. So, when we get some aircraft carrier groups and other things, we will be in a position to do something. The reason for it is a single pinpoint strike won't fix anything. We need a sustained series of strikes over the long term, all right, and with tactical flexibility as things change. We don't have the ability to take out the guard corps the way we truly need to, because you have to do a thorough job if you actually want the revolution to throw out the theocracy to succeed. It can't just be a pinpoint strike like on a nuclear facility. All right? You're going to have to do things for the long term, and you have to be able to identify where they're at and continue to strike. So you need continuous assets for immediate replies and things to change things. Meanwhile, our wonderful NATO ally, Canada, turns to China as Trump's tariffs and threats bring foes together. With U.S. ties at their lowest point in modern history, Canada is turning to one of the only countries with which it's had even worse relations, China. Canada is forging a new strategic partnership with China, its second biggest trading partner, Prime Minister Mark Carney said Friday during what he called a historic trip to Beijing that includes a break with the United States on tariffs, which have hit both Canadian and Chinese economies. Carney, the first Canadian Prime Minister to visit China since 2017, met with Xi Jinping in the Great Hall of the People. He is one of a series of world leaders shaken by President Donald Trump's geopolitical disruptions who are traveling to Beijing as it seeks to exploit U.S. unpredictability to bolster its global influence. For Canada, the Trump administration has been especially head-spinning. The United States has been a friend and an ally, said Guy Saint-Jacques, all right, a former Canadian ambassador to China, all right, to NBC News in an interview. Now we are treated as an enemy because you've acted like one. How is it head-spinning? Considering the actions of Trudeau and Carney with respect to President Trump prior to him being president. And as he is president. Now, I can say this and make whatever deal you want with China. Go ahead. We have no problem in increasing tariffs on you. Go ahead. Become a Chinese puppet state. Go ahead. The reason I'm saying go ahead with this kind of stuff is because there is nothing China can that Canada will gain from China. Why? Because none of the deals that they make are worth the paper they're printed on. China will renege every single time, all right, as soon as it becomes palatable for them to do so. They are trying now to shore up a lot of other things that have happened, all right, in an attempt to try and say, okay, well, we'll try and do a bypass through Canada to get our goods into America so that we can keep our factories alive. They're going to expect Canada, all right, to pick up where the United States left off when it comes to trade, and the people won't be able to do it. Chinese goods flooding into Canada will not make a bit of difference, all right, as far as the Chinese marketplace goes, number one. And by the way, the other reason they're doing this is because this is how China gets its stuff into the EU. For those who don't know, Canada has been using the EU, all right, as a counterbalance to the United States as well. So China sees this as a method to be able to sit up there and send its imports, granted the long way around, via Canada into the EU and try to flood the EU with Chinese products. But what's the cost? The cost is going to be production, specifically manufacturing within where? Canada. And Canada, being the wonderful nation where it is, where it constantly says screw you to the United States, and it will never take a back seat to it, to the United States, has no problem taking the back seat to China and will be trying to flood them, all right, with its natural resources and get nothing in return. Because the Canadians don't work. The one thing that the world has yet to come into to comply, I shouldn't say compliance with. What's the word I'm looking for? To come to the realization. The one realization that the rest of the world, all right, has never wanted to admit and still doesn't want to admit, and neither does all these freaking leftist reporters and these major news agencies. The United States is self-sufficient. Believe it or not, we don't need the rest of the world. We don't. We can manufacture whatever we want. Oh, wait, no, you don't have the natural resources to do it. Oh, really? The United States is huge. And sure, there's natural resources that the United States doesn't have, but we have workarounds. The United States doesn't have rare earth metals. The United States has plenty of rare earth in certain types. It doesn't have all the rare earths. No. It doesn't have a lot of readily accessible rare earths in certain types. That is also true. You think the Canadians do? Do you think the Chinese do? The United States doesn't need anything from the rest of the world in near the degree that the rest of the world believes itself to be. They believe they're far more powerful than they are. If you blockaded the United States, no imports, do the American people starve? No. But if the United States decides to say, okay, we won't export any food to anyone, I wonder how many countries would survive very long. Especially this stalwart ally. EV repaints Britain's car market green, says industry body. British drivers turning to electric vehicles are leading a change in color preferences as green-tinted cars are sold in 2025 have reached their highest volume in 20 years. All right. An industry body, SMT, said on Friday, car colors rarely matter as a business metric, but they can reflect shifting tastes. In recent years, those tastes have narrowed to plain shades of gray, prompting Fiat CEO owner Olivier Francois, all right, in 2023 to launch a campaign promoting more cheerful tones. The EV transition has put a new spin on the trend. British motorists associating the color green with the country's decarbonization drive bought 99,793 green cars in the year, 46.3% more than in 2024, and have reached almost 5% of total cars sold. It comes as electrified cars, either battery electric, hybrid electric, or plug-in hybrid, have reached last year a market share of over 48% in the UK, helped by a national scheme which aims to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2035. If you want net carbon emissions to be 0 by 2035, if that's your goal, Britain, just point it out. That's 9 years away. 9. 9 years. So what does that mean? That means you've got to replace all your automobiles with electric vehicles, and all of your plants, your electrical plants, are going to have to be now no longer oil-based. They're going to have to be nuclear. What about wind and solar? What about wind and solar are not going to work. They're not going to be able to provide the power for it that you're talking about. Everybody knows this. Simple math would prove that if you attempted to utilize it. If Britain wants to be carbon neutral, they're going to have to build nuclear power plants, and they're going to have to build a lot of them. You have 9 years. I don't see you breaking ground. I don't see you breaking ground in 9. I don't see this happening. It's a wonderful goal. La 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 la. It's all Smurf shit. It's all Smurf shit. There's only one thing that can provide enough power to the energy grid, to the British people, and that's nuclear power. And you're more rabid anti-nuke than we are. Unless you start seeing some serious movement toward building a nuclear power grid, none of this is going to make a difference. From the New York Post, billionaire Larry Ellison scrambled to rename yacht after coming to a horrifying realization about its name. A billionaire was once forced to rename his super yacht after coming to the horrifying realization of what it spells out when placed in front of a mirror. The Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison had just christened his new German-built yacht Izanami, all right, blissfully unaware that reversing the name produces "I'm a Nazi." The 81-year-old reportedly selected the name from Japanese mythology after a Shinto goddess associated with both creation and death. Ellison, who has close family ties to Israel, all right, reportedly learned of the offensive backward spelling and rushed to grab the paint thinner and rename the vessel. Ellison was not Ellison has not owned the 58-meter Lurzian super yacht, now named Ronin, for a while after selling it to a Venezuelan banker, Victor Vargas, sometime before 2013. Ah, what a moron. Oh, goodness me. On to the next story. UPS store's massive animatronic seahorse earns a world record. Hey, UPS, you deliver packages. Why did you create an animatronic seahorse? The Guinness World Records announced that the UPS store's nautical themed float in this year's Rose Parade earned the record for the largest animatronic fish. The New Year's Day parade float centerpiece, a massive mechanical seahorse, was confirmed by the record keeping organization to measure 28 feet by 10 feet 1 inch by 12 feet 3 inches. The giant seahorse wireframe and machinery were covered with orange lentils, corn husks, mushrooms, kumquats, orange slices, and roses. The float also won Director Award for design for the Tournament of Roses. The animatronic seahorse. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the animatronic seahorse. If you want to participate in the Rose Parade, fine, but you're a box company. All right? If the seahorses were delivering boxes, okay, I get it. If they're floating around saying, okay, here's your package. If the seahorse had a brown cap driving a brown submarine delivering packages, you'd have been okay. Other than that, this was stupid. I just this sounds a waste of time. Japan's tourism agency issues bear warning pictogram signs. If you're going to issue a warning pictogram, don't you think, maybe the bear mauling the stick figure or something would be better than a sign of don't feed the bears? Japan's tourism industry created a new pictogram signs warning visitors that feeding bears, approaching them, and leaving trash are prohibited, aiming to alert foreign travelers and people of all ages through simple visuals. A bear swiping at the head while the guy's hands are laid out, right? And little drips of blood coming from it, I think would more graphically visualize don't feed the bear. Just put it out there. 3 cryptogram signs, simple pictures symbols designed to convey information at a glance, are available for free download at the agency's website. They show red slashes over people feeding or approaching bears and illustrate how litter can attract them. We want them posted at tourist sites where bears are likely to appear to help keep visitors safe. Just putting it out here. You want to keep the people safe? Put up a picture of a bear mauling. All right. Show some real pictures from the grizzly boy. The idiot up in Alaska who was bopping a grizzly bear on the nose in one of his little documentaries before he was him and his girlfriend got attacked at night. Florida deputies lassos then handcuffs a runaway emu. A 25-year-old veteran of the Florida Police Department, all right, experienced a career first when a loose animal call resulted in him handcuffing an emu. St. Johns County Sheriff's Office said on social media that Corporal Kiesler responded to a report of an emu on the loose on Friday. Kiesler attempted to secure the emu, but the large bird ignored his commands. Duh. Kicked several times using its large talons, and fled on foot recklessly. Kiesler ended up lassoing the emu and then using handcuffs to secure its legs. In my 25 years, I have never handcuffed an emu. This is definitely a new one. The emu was not injured and it was returned to its owner. Emus can be dangerous. Okay, I'm just pointing this out. Emus can be quite dangerous from time to time. Final story of the day, folks. Final story. Goat detained for trying to break into a retirement community. Ah. Police responded to a retirement home in Washington on a report of a goat attempting to break into the facility. The Auburn Police Department said on social media that officers arrived at the Wesley homes to find that a goat attempted to gain entry into the building. The officers safely detained the suspect until a friend of the owner arrived to pick her up. The goat, named Ruby, posed for a photo with the officers before being taken home. Charges were dropped due to extreme adorableness. I would have said charges were dropped due to extreme deliciousness, is how I would have put it. But hey, to each their own. Just